It started like any other neighborhood gathering, the usual kind. Plastic cups filled with cheap wine, everyone pretending to be closer than they really were, and that unspoken competition about who had their life more put together. I didn't think much of it when the conversation shifted to my husband, Mark. He had always been a little socially awkward, the kind of guy who stumbles over his words or cracks a joke no one understands until it's too late. And yes, I roll my eyes at him more times than I can count. But that night, after a few too many glasses of Chardonnay and the easy encouragement of the group, I joined in. "We love Mark," someone said with a half-hearted laugh. "But he's, a little different." "Oh, you have no idea," I chimed in, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "You should see him try to fix things around the house. It's like watching a YouTube tutorial in reverse. Everything ends up worse." People laughed, not the polite, forced kind, but real, deep laughter. The kind that feeds your ego and makes you feel like the funniest person in the room. So I kept going. I swear, sometimes I think Mark is secretly auditioning for America's Funniest Home Videos. Like that time he tried to fix the garbage disposal and ended up flooding the entire kitchen. Classic Mark. By then, everyone was in on it. The men slapped their knees. The women nodded knowingly. I glanced at Mark across the patio. He was standing by the grill, flipping burgers, his face an unreadable mask of indifference. That should have been my sign to stop. But the laughter felt too good. And don't even get me started on his sense of direction, I added with a grin. Mark could get lost in his own driveway. He's got this navigation app now that's supposed to help, but half the time he argues with it. Like, "No, I know a better way." I chuckled. Spoiler alert. He doesn't. Another wave of laughter erupted. Even Karen, the woman who's always looked down on me since we moved in, was wiping away tears from laughing so hard. For once, I felt like I was winning. Then, Mark put down the spatula. At first, I thought he was just stepping away to grab something. But instead, he walked toward us, shoulders stiff, jaw clenched. The laughter died instantly. The air grew tense. "Funny stuff, huh?" His voice was calm, steady, but there was an edge to it I had never heard before. "You know what's really funny?" he continued. "Spending 15 years trying to make someone happy, only to find out you're the punchline at a backyard barbecue. Silence. Thick. Suffocating. I try to laugh it off. Oh, come on." But before I could finish, he was already walking away. For a moment, I thought about calling him back. But then my pride kicked in. He's overreacting. It was just jokes. People tease their spouses all the time. That's what I told myself as I put on a pot of coffee, staring out the window, trying to convince myself I wasn't the villain here. But the truth gnawed at me, because no matter how much I tried to ignore it, I could still see his face. And I could still hear the way his voice cracked when he said 15 years. I didn't know what hurt more, the fact that he had walked away or that I hadn't seen it coming. By mid-morning, the texts started rolling in. Karen, ever the nosy neighbor, was the first. "Hey, just checking in. That was something last night. Hope you're okay." Then came Jennifer. "Claire, I feel awful. Do you want to talk? Maybe grab lunch?" Even Karen's husband, Dale, chimed in. "Mark's a good guy. Hope you two work things out. Let me know if I can help." They all meant well, I suppose. But each message felt like a spotlight shining on my failure. And it only got worse when Karen texted again, this time with a photo. Mark, sitting alone at a coffee shop across town. "Saw this and thought of you. Maybe you should go talk to him." I wanted to scream, or cry, or throw my phone against the wall. But instead, I just stared at the picture. Mark looked calm, resigned maybe, like someone who had already made up his mind about something. By lunchtime, I was pacing the living room, trying to figure out how things had spiraled so badly. It wasn't like we didn't love each other. Sure, we weren't the type of couple who posted anniversary tributes on Facebook or called each other babe in public. But we had a good thing, didn't we? I tried to remember the last time we had really talked. Not about bills, grocery lists, or household chores, but an actual, meaningful conversation. It had been months, maybe even longer, somewhere between the daily routine and my habit of venting about him to friends. I had stopped seeing Mark as a person who could break, and now, apparently, I had found his breaking point. That afternoon, I tried calling him. No answer. So I texted, "Mark, I'm sorry. Can we please talk?" Nothing. I waited an hour before sending another. "I'm not okay. I need to hear from you." Still nothing. By 4 p.m., the coffee pot was empty and my nerves were shot. Desperate, I began searching online for advice, typing phrases like what to do when your husband walks out and how to mend a marriage after making a mistake. Eventually, I stumbled upon a forum for women navigating separation. Most of them seemed just as bewildered as I felt, except for one comment that lingered in my mind. You can't fix it if they don't want to be fixed, but you can show them you're willing to try. So I tried. The first thing I did was drive to the cafe where Karen had last seen him. I didn't have a solid plan, just a desperate hope that seeing him in person might make a difference. But by the time I arrived, he was gone. The barista informed me that he had left about an hour earlier. No, he didn't leave a number. No forwarding address. My next stop was his brother's house. Tom lived a couple of towns away and had always been the family peacemaker. If anyone could talk sense into Mark, it was him. But when I asked, even Tom had no idea where he was. "What the hell happened, Claire?" he asked, arms folded as he leaned against the doorframe. It was a stupid argument, I admitted, my voice breaking. Not even a real fight. I was just joking around, and he got upset. Joking about what? Tom pressed. I hesitated. You know, just teasing him like everyone does. Tom didn't laugh. "You're not everyone, CLA. You're his wife." That night, I sat alone in our bedroom, surrounded by remnants of him, his pillow, his shirt still hanging in the closet, the half-used bottle of cologne on the dresser. Everything felt unbalanced, as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for him to return. I kept thinking about the note he had left. "You've made your feelings clear." The words looped through my mind like a song I couldn't silence. Had I truly made him feel that way? By the time I finally drifted off to sleep, I wasn't angry anymore, just terrified. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't something I could fix with a simple apology or a grand, romantic gesture. I had broken something, and I had no idea how to put it back together. By morning, I had to face the reality. Mark wasn't coming back unless I gave him a reason to. I couldn't just sit around, hoping he'd move past it. So, swallowing my pride, I drove to his office. I sat in my car for what felt like an eternity, rehearsing what I would say. But when I finally worked up the courage to walk inside, his assistant informed me he hadn't been in all week. That's when it hit me. He wasn't just taking a break from me. He was distancing himself from his entire life. A few days later, another note arrived in the mail. Not a text, not an email, a letter. "Claire, I've been staying with a friend and taking time to think. I keep replaying that night in my head, and I realize it wasn't just the jokes. It was the moment I understood that you stopped seeing me as your partner a long time ago. I don't know exactly when it happened, but now it's undeniable. I can't be the guy you mock to make yourself feel better. I deserve more than that. And honestly, so do you. I've decided to file for divorce. It's not an easy decision, but it feels like the right one. I hope we can handle this with respect. Take care, Mark." The finality of it crushed me. My first instinct was to argue, to plead, to fight for us. But deep down, I knew he was right. I had spent so much time nitpicking his flaws, venting about him to friends, that I had forgotten what it truly meant to love someone fully, flaws and all. That night, I sat alone in the empty house and let myself feel everything. The regret, the guilt, the loss. I wanted to be furious at him for giving up, but I couldn't. Because if I was honest with myself, I had given up first. The divorce was swift, quiet. We had no children, no major assets to divide, so there wasn't much to dispute. Mark moved into a small apartment a few towns away. I stayed in the house. People in the neighborhood eventually stopped mentioning it. Life carried on, as it always does. But every now and then, I'd see Mark at the grocery store passing by in his car. He always looked content. Not necessarily happy, but at peace. And I hated how much it hurt to know he had found that peace without me. It's been a year now, and I'm still trying to piece myself together. I've been in therapy, trying to unravel how I became someone who took for granted the person who loved me most. The truth is, Mark leaving was a wake-up call I didn't know I needed. It's forced me to reevaluate everything. How I see myself, how I treat those I care about, what I truly want in a relationship. Do I miss him? Every damn day. But I also know he did the right thing. Because sometimes the only way to save yourself is to walk away from someone who has already let you go.